You're kneeling over a device with 4 wires running into a timer that's already counting down, and your supervisor just told you something through your earpiece that changes everything. This isn't a training exercise, and the building behind you isn't empty. There are 11 people in the basement who can't get out in time if you guess wrong. You have 90 seconds, 4 wires, and only one of them is safe to cut. What you don't know yet is that the bomb itself isn't the real test today. The real test is the voice that's about to come through your earpiece, because it's not your supervisor anymore. You've defused 31 devices in your career. Most of them were simple. Single trigger, single wire, predictable wiring patterns that match something you trained on 100 times. This one doesn't match anything. 4 wires, no obvious color coding logic, and a timer that's already past the point where evacuation alone would save everyone. Your training tells you to start with continuity testing, to trace each wire back to its connection point before touching anything. But the timer is already inside the danger zone, where standard procedure assumes you have more time than you actually have right now. 40 seconds of testing might be 40 seconds you don't have. You radio command for the building schematics, hoping there's a maintenance log, an electrician who installed something similar, anything that gives you real data instead of a guess. What comes back instead is worse than silence. It's confirmation that this device doesn't match anything in any database, anywhere, which means someone built this specifically so that no technician walking in could rely on pattern recognition. You think the wires are the hardest part of this job today. They're not, because the voice that just came through your earpiece isn't your supervisor's voice anymore, and what it says next changes the entire situation. The voice in your ear introduces itself calmly, almost politely, and tells you it built a device. It tells you it's watching you through a camera you haven't located yet, somewhere in the room, and that it has one piece of information your supervisor doesn't: which wire is actually safe. It offers to tell you, for a price. You're trained to never negotiate, never engage, to treat any contact from a suspect as a tactic designed to manipulate your decision-making under pressure. But you're also trained to recognize when standard procedure was written for a scenario that didn't include someone who built a device specifically to force a conversation like this one. The voice tells you the price isn't money. It wants you to choose which of 2 rooms gets evacuated first, the basement with 11 people, or a second room upstairs that your team didn't even know existed until 30 seconds ago, containing 4 more people who are now also trapped behind a door that locked the moment the timer started. You think the 4 wires were your only problem. They're not even the main one anymore, because now you have 15 people across 2 rooms, a timer you can't stop without information, and a voice that's about to make you choose something far worse than which wire to cut. Your team confirms it. There's a second lock room upstairs, and the 4 people inside have no way out except through a door wired into the same system as the bomb itself. Cutting the wrong wire downstairs doesn't just risk detonation. It might also be rigged to seal that door permanently, depending on which circuit you trigger. You don't know if that's true. You have no way to verify it. The voice could be lying to manipulate you into a slower, more deliberate decision instead of acting on instinct, which might be exactly the kind of hesitation a bomb like this is designed to punish. Or it could be telling you the truth, and ignoring it could cost 4 more lives on top of the 11 you're already trying to save. Command tells you they're sending a second team to manually force the upstairs door, but manual entry on a reinforced lock takes time you don't know if you have. You're now making a decision about wire color, while simultaneously trying to calculate whether helping one group of people might be actively hurting another group you can't even see. You think you understand the stakes now. You don't, because the voice is about to ask you a question that has nothing to do with wires at all, and everything to do with who you are. The voice asks you a single question. If you had to pick only one room to guarantee save, which one would it be? The 11 in the basement or the 4 upstairs? It tells you that whichever room you name, it will give you the correct wire to save that room specifically, and only that room. The other room is left entirely to chance. You refuse to answer. You tell the voice you're not playing this game, that you're going to keep working the device using the training and judgment you actually trust. But the voice doesn't get angry. It just tells you that refusing to choose is itself a choice, because the clock doesn't stop running while you stay silent, and silence has its own consequences built into the countdown. 42 seconds left. You go back to the wires, ignoring the voice, trying to find a physical tell, a manufacturing detail, anything that doesn't depend on trusting a stranger who built a bomb specifically to manipulate you into a moral trap. Your eyes catch something, a slight discoloration on one wire's insulation, like it's been handled more recently than the others. You think that detail is your way out. It might be, but what you find when you look closer at that wire is something that makes a decision even harder, not easier. The discoloration isn't random wear. It's a tiny scratch mark, deliberately placed. Like whoever built this device wanted at least one technician somewhere along the line to find it if they looked closely enough. But you don't know if that mark identifies the safe wire or the trigger wire, because a scratch could just as easily be bait designed to draw your attention exactly where the builder wants it. 28 seconds left. You radio command with what you found, and your supervisor, your actual supervisor, not the voice, tells you she can't make this call for you. Field protocol says the technician on site has final authority, precisely because no one removed from the device has enough information to override your read of the situation in real time. You think about the 11 people below you and the 4 people above you, and you realize that whether you trust the voice's offer, trust the scratch mark, or trust pure procedural odds, every single option is still a guess dressed up as a decision. There is no version of this where you have certainty. There's only the version where you choose and live with not knowing if you chose right. You think you've run out of time to think. You haven't. There are still 19 seconds left. But what you do with them is about to define which 15 people walk out of this building today. You make your decision in the last possible window you have. You don't take the voice's offer, because trusting a person who built a device to manipulate you feels like exactly the trap it's designed to be. You don't fully trust the scratch mark either, because bait and truth can look identical under enough pressure. Instead, you fall back on the one piece of real training you have, the wire with the least resistance reading on your multimeter, the one most likely to be a structural decoy rather than a live circuit, based on actual physics instead of psychological manipulation. You cut it for 3 full seconds. Nothing happens, and those 3 seconds feel longer than the entire 90 that came before them. Then the timer freezes. The device goes dark. Somewhere above you, you hear the upstairs door unlock. Not because you save it intentionally, but because the wire you chose happened to be wired into both systems after all. You think the danger is over. It is, technically. But what the voice says to you in your earpiece right before it cuts out is something you're going to be thinking about long after today. The voice's last words to you, just before your team traces and kills the signal, are simple. You didn't choose either room. You just got lucky that they were connected. And that's the part that sits heaviest with you afterward, heavier than the 11 people you saved or the 4 people you also happened to save. You didn't solve the dilemma the voice tried to force on you. You sidestepped it, using a piece of technical logic that had nothing to do with the moral trap at all. Investigators later determined the device was built by a former bomb disposal instructor, someone who'd spent years training technicians on exactly the kind of decision paralysis the scenario was engineered to exploit. He wasn't trying to kill anyone today. He was testing whether his training actually changes how someone behaves under impossible pressure, or whether it collapses the moment the stakes turn personal and moral instead of purely technical. So here's the question that follows you home. If the wires hadn't happened to be connected, and choosing the basement meant losing the 4 people upstairs, would you have been able to live with a decision you made using pure technical odds, knowing somewhere in the back of your mind a voice had offered you a different kind of certainty? And the next technician who faces something like this, will they even get as lucky as you did?